Okay, here's a quickie, hopefully, a quick screencast of how to get your type into two columns, basically. So what we're doing here, we've done this in class, is that we found this type. Now you're going to look for your assignment. You're going to pick a column, a company. You are going to just copy and paste some text about that company or about the CEO of the company, or if you can even find a letter from the CEO, whatever it is, you're going to copy and paste that type. Now, you need to have at least 330 words or 350 words for this to work, for this to be really reading as text, which is the point of all of this on this page. Now, if you've copied and pasted your type from your company into a text box, and you don't know how many words it is, it's very simple to find out. You go up to your info panel. Remember, all panels come off the top menu from window, scrolling down to info. And when I've just selected all the type with my T-tool, and it's telling me that there are 329 words in this text box. So that's how you can tell. If I took out a sentence and selected it all again, now it's 311. So that's the way to do it, okay? That's the way you can do what's called a word count. Very simple. Okay, I'm going to go as quickly as I can because we did this in class. I talked about how it might be smart for you to stick it over on the pasteboard here. The pasteboard does not print. Remember, if you go to W, it is on the outside bounding of the letter pages itself, of the document pages, I should say. And sometimes it's just good to have a duplicate of your text. So I am just going to do that anyway. And I'm going to copy it all. So I could have hit Command A and Command C, or I could select like I just did, Command C. I'm now in my T-tool, my type tool, and my cursor looks like an input cursor, and I'm going again from margin to margin, and I'm just going to go all the way down to the top to the bottom and let go, and I'm seeing that mine didn't snap perfectly to the margin. I want it to really be on the margins. And then I'm putting my cursor inside the box, which means it's now flashing, and I'm going to Control or Command V for paste. And basically we now just have a duplicate of what this is. Now I can just move this off it to the side. It's really there just in case something kooky happens and I lose the type and I don't want to have to go get it from the internet again. So here it is in a text box. I've actually already typed the headline in here. Notice I've kind of given myself an idea of where that might be. So I'm going to actually pull its box down a little bit because I think I'm going to be making this a much bigger type so that it is reading as a headline. But this is for right now, what this video is going to be about is how to turn this one text box into two or more columns of type. And basically, you've got the box selected. So I'm even selecting it with the black arrow tool. And I'm going to go to Command or Control B for boy. And that brings up the text frame options window. And in this window, it's very simple. You can simply change the number 1 here underneath the column section. And it immediately generates columns within the text box. It splits the box into 2, 3, 4, whatever columns you want. And what's really important, because you want it to look good and you want it to be really readable, is you need to play with the gutter, which is the setting underneath that, and that is the space in between the two columns of type. So remember to have your preview on, because otherwise you're not going to see anything. And I'm just going to click down because that gutter felt a little bit too big. If we click balance columns, that might help us as well. For right now, that's all we're going to do. I'm not seeing that actually Balanced Columns is doing much for us. We can talk about it later. So maybe unclick it just in case something goes wacky. And now we have created 2 columns of type. Okay, you can say okay. Now, what's happened is that on this one, I have a little red square with a plus sign, and that means that's the overset valve, which is telling me you've got more words in here that aren't fitting in the box. So you take your black arrow tool, and you can go there by going to V, remember. Click on it, and sometimes you have to kind of double click on it. You want to go slow, so like just then I overdid it. You want to click on it and go slowly so that the cursor looks like it is loaded up with all the type that's in that text box, which is actually exactly what it's previewing. And that I'm just going to click and drag out a box to see what type is not fitting in my box. And this is the type here on the left that is not fitting in my box, or frame, I should say, or container, whatever you want to call it. If I pull my text box up by clicking on that middle handle, you can see that now it is fitting. It has got it's 2 lines short. So this is the way you would move your boxes of type around in terms of if you want to push and pull type within the box, you only use the middle handle here. Think of it as a window shade, and this is the window shade handle. Don't work over here because you're going to lose your alignment to your margins, which is so important. So I could make this go up a bit. It's fitting really lovely now. That's terrific. Except that, as you know, we're going to put a photograph in the middle. So really quickly, I'm going to assume that you have gotten a photograph of the CEO or the founder of your company. You've prepped that image at 300 pixels per inch. And when it's at 300 pixels per inch, you have sized it to be an appropriate size for the layout. So, for instance, if this whole page is only 5.5 inches wide, and the text box itself, if I click on it with the black arrow tool, is, sorry, my computer is super slow today. If I click on the box itself, it's only 4.5 inches wide, so probably a 2.5 inch, tall or even square image is going to work. I'm just going to go quickly and go to Command or Control D. We did this in class, so this should be no surprise. This is the picture of Joe Malone, the actual founder of the company, and I'm pulling it down. I'm pulling my text box down, and I'm actually centering it by looking at the little black X, not black, blue, little tiny light blue X. And I'm putting that little light blue X right in the middle of the gutter because I want to really make sure that this photograph is absolutely centered. Now there's the smart guides. That works too. I'm just giving you a couple of little things. All right, so to move forward, we have to put a text wrap on this photograph. Click on it with the black arrow tool, not the white arrow tool. Make sure you see the blue bounding box, not the brown one. Remember, the brown one is for the photograph within the box, and the blue one is the box itself. And we want to put a text wrap on the box. So I'm going to show a couple different ways of doing this. If you have a properties panel up, and oftentimes you do, you can go down here where it says text wrap, and this will do a lot of the work for you. If you're not comfortable with the properties panel, the same thing is up at the top in your control panel up at the top. They're the same exact thing. I'll do the properties panel for now, just for fun. I've clicked on the image, and I click down here where it says text wrap on the second icon. And it says, remember, if you hover over it, it says wrap around bounding box. That's what we want. It is now, there's a force field pushing the type kind of away from the photograph and the frame of the photograph, but you can see it's very, very tight. In other words, there's not any white space in between the text frame and the type, and we want to make sure we have white space. So if you click on the properties panel here again, it gives you it brings up more settings. And these are the very, very important settings that you must use. You want to make sure for the beginning is that you keep this chain link intact. In other words, it should look like that, not like that where it says none. Because what this does is it's going to make whatever you type in one field, all of them are going to change at the same time. So watch this. I'm just going to click the little tiny up arrow, and immediately you're seeing a light blue line, again a non-printing line that is showing the force field that's pushing the type away. I'm going to leave it right there. You guys can absolutely play with this when you're on your own layout. You just want to think about it where it's not too tight. Like, see this on this side, that's just really getting too tight. We can't, there's not enough white space or breathing space in between the letters and the box. There's a little bit, but it could be better. At least I would think usually you want to have 0.125. Okay, so that is text wrap. I'm not going to get any fancier than this, except that you now have to work on fitting your type in. So it could be that you change the configuration of your image frame. So I'm making it a little bit squarer. And I want to make sure I keep that handle right in the middle of that gutter, right there. Sometimes even just moving it up a couple lines or just wiggling it around within the lines will help. But I still have a bunch of type that's not fitting. So I'm going to now assume I have to change the font. And I'm not going to change. I'm going to change the font, and I'm going to change the size of the type itself, the point size of the type. So I've selected all of it. Now I did that by just kind of, scraping over it. You can actually just put your cursor, flashing cursor, into any of the type. Go to Command or Control A to select it all. You're going to go to the font window. You're going to pick a readable text type of font. So a text type of font is one often like Times New Roman. You can pick one that does not have a serif, and we'll talk about that. But you don't want to pick something that's really crazy and bold. You want it to be very, very simple. I'm going to pick Times Roman, which has already gone up to the top, Times New Roman actually. I want you to make sure that you don't use Minion Pro, which is the default, because that's just too lazy. And now I'm at my font, my type. If I click out of it, if I click on it, click on it again. Come on, computer, Command A. It is 12 points in size with 14.4 points in leading. Remember, leading is the space between the lines. And we want, when it's text, we don't want too much. But we want to have at least 2 points more than the font size itself. So 14 will work. But maybe I'm going to bring this type size down to 11. Ooh, and look at that. It kind of fits right away. Again, there's no science to this, you guys. You just have to figure it out yourself. There's all kinds of pushing and pulling and things you can do. It could be that you would bring the box up a little, your text box up a little bit or down a little bit. There's all kinds of things that you should do to make it look better. So for instance, I don't like the fact there's just one word here. That's called a widow. So I'm going to put my cursor right before that third, where it says I, and I'm going to click the return button to bring that down to the line where it looks better. And if I wanted to put a stroke on this, I'm just going to do this really simply for you. You know that this is all, can be black, it can be whatever color. You can make it bigger. It does, often when you put a stroke on things, it pushes the type a little bit too. And that's how we fit into columns of type. Now for the headline, you can have a lot more fun with the font. So for instance, I'm just going to select the second line here. I'm going to pretend that's the main headline. I'm going to change my font to a different one. I'm going to pick Rockwell. And I'm going to go to Command Shift period to make it big. And I'm going to stop when so just so it still fits in the text box. And then I might make it bold. And if I wanted, of course, I can make it a color. So I'm going to stop there. I hope that helps. How to make text boxes. Remember, it's Command B for the text frame options, and then the text wrap is done in the text wrap area of the properties bar or the control bar up here.